Hi, Yogcha, you're on mute.
Um, Hi, good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Cheryl, for
Jennifer,
some reason, I can't hear you.
oh, you can't hear us? We can hear you. Jennifer, can you say something?
Yogja, are you able to hear me? This is Jennifer from FFE.
I can hear. Yes, now I can.
Great. So it's 5:05. So can we start the session?
Yes, I'll just bring up my screen and let
I'll
me quickly bring it.
yeah, I'll start with the introduction. I think you can check on the um, word videos or because I've given you the share access. You can just check if it's okay. Yeah. So, good evening, all. I'm Jennifer, and I'm very happy to welcome you all to the last session of KPMG's Soft Skills series. And the topic for today will be interview handling and virtual interviews, tips and tricks. And this will be presented by Ms. Yogja Singh. Yogja is a HR leader with more than 11 years of experience with accounting and consulting firms with deep influencing and relationship building skills. She has been featured in the 2020 HR40 under HR list of Business World. In her current roles as an associate director with KPMG, she leads campus relations for the firms and drives the talent branding agenda of KPMG. Yogja holds a master's in psychology and an MBA in HR. She is also a licensed emotional intelligence coach, NLP practitioner, and a hypnotherapist. We are very happy to have you, Yogja. Over to you.
Thank you, Jennifer, and my sincere apologies to keep everyone waiting. However, technology is unpredictable. I was facing a problem with logging in on the Zoom account despite having used it yesterday and day before.
No worries. No worries.
All right, so I'm conscious of this session and also interact with most of you. So let's quickly get started. I'll quickly run through the agenda of the session, and what you really see here is KPMG creating an impact. You must be wondering what really this is because interviewing skills, and that is what interviewing skills are all about, creating an impact. And in today's session, I'm going to firstly start with talking about which is that one employers when it comes to anything that you do, especially in the professional domain. And eventually, I will really talk about what are some of those first things that are really important from the perspective of making a first impression. And then we will move on to interviewing. What are some of the tips and tricks? What are employers really looking out for? What are they evaluating in you when you're interacting with them? And some things you need to be really careful of when it comes to virtual interviews. So, quickly moving on to the most sought after skill of 2021 here, and that is resilience. It is one of the highest paying skills, and we've all experienced the pandemic, and resilience is something that is really stood out. Now, what is really resilience? It is how do you adapt to your current scenario, because every now and then we're going to be confronted with unprecedented situations, uh, trauma strategies, something that we've not really anticipated. So do we really get stressed, or do are we able to think on our feet? Are we able to go back and bounce back and really deal with the situation, no matter how difficult that experience is? So that's one part of resilience. Now, how do you really build resilience? If you're looking at employability, it is, firstly acknowledging what are you feeling in terms of your emotions. It is acknowledging how do you really build that mental makeup to become more resilient. It is just like building muscles, so we can also build a new outlook, a new way of dealing with things, new beliefs, new habits. So resilience is not rocket science. It is something you can consciously put in effort and you can actually build in. The other part of resilience is that you can actually go ahead and observe what are some of your unconscious reactions. Pay attention to those. What are some of those destructive emotions you experience whenever you encounter a situation which is unprecedented or unpredicted? and try and correct those reactions. So slowly and gradually you train yourself to be far more resilient than you were. And last but not the least, it's very important to stay tuned with your emotions, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and being disciplined with your approach towards that change in terms of your thought process, in terms of your reactions, and all of that will, really lead to you becoming a more resilient you than who you are already. Moving on to your first impressions. So Uh, we do a lot of communication when it comes to non-verbal cues, whether it is our gestures, whether it is how we look or how we see, and even vocal, when we are talking, in terms of our pitch, our articulation, the sound, all of it adds to what we call non-verbal communication. And this is a very important part when you're really looking at making an impact, when you're and interviews pay a lot of attention to non-verbal communication. And it's actually true that what happens really is, within the first 7 to 9 seconds of meeting someone, people frame an impression of you, and these first impressions really stay with them. These impressions shape up everything and anything that when those people are interacting with you, and the way they think and feel about you. Now, when we look at the constituents, visual is of course nearly 55% of your body language when it comes to nonverbal communication and in terms of creating an impact. So, how you look, how you dress up, it's extremely important. Your facial expressions, all of that becomes extremely important. The next important piece here is your vocal pitch. So, whether you're speaking in a very loud volume, you have a loud volume when you're talking, or you're very, very soft spoken, and, you're probably sounding meek when you're talking. So, it's very important that, your pitch is just right when you're interacting with someone, because it constitutes nearly 38% of your nonverbal communication in terms of making an impact. And last but not the least is also verbal, what we say. It's just not about how we say it, but what we also say in terms of using the right language, the right words. If you're able to articulate yourself well, you're able to make the right kind of impression. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to give take a minute here, because I that there seems to be a power cut at my place, and suddenly my laptop's battery is packing off. Give me a second, please. Okay. Now, moving on to the next slide here, verbal skills. That's the first part that we talk about. Uh, like I said, what you say is important, and not just how you say it is important. So when you talk about the right words, the right choice of language, laying the right emphasis in the words and using the right tone is extremely important when you're communicating with someone in terms of your first impressions. And also the volume and the pitch. If your pitch is too shrill, people, will get so disturbed, they may not want to pay attention. If your pitch is very low, they will not be able to hear you properly. So, an amalgamation of really making the impact, and I'm time and again repeating it, is what you say and how you say it. And it comprises of all these three things combined together. I will talk about why they become important subsequently in the interview process as well. But let's quickly talk about some of the other elements that are equally important here when it comes to nonverbal skills, especially when you are in an interview setting. Your posture. It's best not to be relaxed. So some people can decide to sprawl down, or some people can be extremely stiff and without any expressions on their face. None of those work. So you've got to be comfortable. At the same time, you do not have to look like you're very, very relaxed or you're sloppy, but at this, yet alert. So it's very important being comfortable yet alert. The next part is your gestures. So uh, every now and then, and it sort of helps to keep the energy up, whether you're moving your hands or you're nodding when someone's saying something to you, even in a virtual setting. All of it is very important. It just sort of reaffirms that you are in sync with what the other person is saying, because they're not directly across you in a virtual setup. And it's important for them to at least see some sort of a reaction from your end, whether it is your eye movements, your head movement, and if you're talking about something, your hand movements at times. But please be mindful that Your gestures do not have to be extremely fast or aggressive. You want to make sure that they're very well balanced, well timed, and they're very distinct. Body movement, in a virtual setup you're usually sitting, but people need to be careful. There's some people who have this habit of moving their chair. It's very distracting and very unprofessional. It happens unconsciously to a lot of us. I've personally seen this, while you're conversing with people, somebody is just moving their chair back and forth or moving on it back and forth. Please make sure that you do not do that. That's not the idea of body movement. The idea of body movement, like I said, is your gestures, a little bit of nod in your head, moving your head a little bit, or slightly tilting your head if required for whatever reason, if you're paying more attention, or leaning forward a little bit in case you want to showcase interest. But making sure that you're not distracting the other person by body movements that are not useful at all. Facial expressions important. So you can choose to be either grumpy about things, or you can choose to be smiling, confident, and be friendly. I'm quite certain that all of you have experienced it. Nobody really likes to interact with a grumpy person, and especially when it comes to interviews, you're looking at people who are pleasant and who are good to work with. You don't want to be connecting with that person every day when they're just very grumpy and scowling all the time. Eye contact extremely important. So one thing is, if I'm not looking here, in eye contact in the virtual world is slightly tricky. So either I'm looking towards the camera. I could also be talking like this to you, and that's going to not really have the impact that it's supposed to have. So some people have this habit. I've seen them in virtual settings. They're going to be thinking, and while they're thinking, they're constantly looking in a different direction, and they're not looking towards the screen or towards the camera. So please make sure that at least in a virtual setup, when you're interacting, and even in a face-to-face setup, you are looking in the right direction. Try and maintain eye contact, or at least if not eye contact, at least make sure you're looking towards the screen and interacting with that person in a virtual setup. Now, before we really foray into an interview, I think it's very important for all of us as we embark in our professional journeys to create a personal brand. All of us need to be an entity in ourselves. All of us need to stand for a few things. And in this day and age of, the whole virtual working mode that we've moved to, that personal brand becomes extremely important, because you are not physically present there for people to see or feel or experience your brand. And how do you do that in a virtual setting becomes important, and this can be done by a number of things. Let's talk about some of those. uh, Firstly, a virtual brand is supposed to highlight what is really unique about you, right? What is it that brings out your strengths? What really enhances your presence? How do people notice you? And the web does play a very important role. So your personal brand, especially in this day and age of social media, people pay a lot of attention to your LinkedIn profiles, to some of your other professional profiles, and they look at what kind of content you are posting. If most of you do not have a LinkedIn profile, I would strongly advise you to please make one, and make a very thorough one. It's one thing to just simply list things, but it's another thing to have a detailed LinkedIn profile. More often than not, a lot of recruiters are resorting to looking at profiles instead of resumes. So your LinkedIn profile should actually serve as your social resume as well. It's also important of what are the kind of posts you are sharing on your LinkedIn. Are you writing any articles? What is the essence of those articles? Does it showcase who you are as a person? What exactly is your background? What are your interests areas? Right? So getting uh, branding piece out there on social media is also very important in terms of branding. Now, whether you're interacting with people in person or in the virtual working world, it is important to connect with people. It's one thing to possibly go for an interview and then eventually send people about some 15 odd mails within the next 1 week following up on the status. It's another thing when you go for an interview, you send back a thank you note, and you politely maybe send a LinkedIn request or so, saying that I'd be happy to stay connected irrespective of the outcome. And should you not hear from anybody, say within the first 1 week of your interaction, or after your interview, it's best to probably time your follow-ups. Maybe after a week you can send and say that, it'll help if you can at least know that, let me know how long before is it that I can hear from you, right? So these are some things. And it's also important to stay constantly connected when you network with someone. And when I say network, I mean some form of regular interaction, just a small note to check on people. And I think some people did it very well during the pandemic when it set in. uh, there were these personalized notes that people would send out, saying, I know these are tough times, I hope you and your family are doing well. And those small things really mattered, and they made a lot of difference. It just made the other person think that, okay, here's someone that I've connected with, and they do care within their network as to how people are doing. There were some people who reached out and said, okay, why don't we just quickly catch up? I thought I'll just understand how you're doing, and we could exchange notes on some of the best practices as to how do we deal with this situation. So different things that happened, and really depending on who your peer group or colleague or whoever is that person in the network, you of course have to be more very appropriately send out your communication, and in the context of your networking relationship with them, and reach out to them. Now, when you're looking at really creating a personal brand, these are some questions that you can really think through. What do you really stand for? What are your strengths? What are you passionate about? uh, what are you known for in your friend and family circle or in your professional network? And what do you really want to accomplish in life? And what is it that how do you define success? What does it mean to you? What is and what kind of jobs, companies, or industries would you like to pursue based on your interest area? All of that will help shape up your personal brand, because that will trigger how you create your social profiles, what are the kind of people you reach out to and network, what are the kind of articles you're writing or reading, and what is the content of your conversation. So all of that makes a lot of difference when it comes to your personal brand. So here's some quick branding tips for all of you. Just make sure that you're authentic. There's no point faking it, and believe you me, people out there, interviewers, they're all trained to know in seconds that people are just sort of faking it in the interview, and they're not being their authentic selves. What's also important is learn how do you introduce yourself. So we've all heard about an elevator pitch. Do you all know about an elevator pitch? Can I have some comments in the chat window? And I'm sorry, I can't see the chat window. It will help if someone. Okay, all right. So I see some comments come up. So I see some people are saying no, some people are saying yes. So just to quickly let you know, why this term elevator pitch was specifically coined, especially or keeping the scenario in mind. So here's the scenario. You possibly entering a building, and you catch the CEO or maybe a senior leadership professional from the firm that you are aspiring to work with. And in the elevator, 30 seconds is all you have, or a minute or 2 minutes, depending on, from the ground floor to maybe the topmost floor, is all you have in terms of making that impact. So what are some of those key things that you really tell that person about yourself that's going to grab their attention? That exactly is what an elevator pitch is. And your introduction should actually uh, really shape up this elevator pitch in terms of what you really want to say about yourself. What is it that you want to essentially uh, leave with the person who's listening to you? So it's important that you create your elevator pitch, and that's how exactly how you start your interviews whenever you meet someone, in terms of your introduction, so that they've got their attention. And these elevator pitches can actually be customized, so depending on what kind of firm you're interviewing for, based on your research, and I will talk about the research piece in the subsequent slides. Make sure that you tune your elevator pitch to that, so that that XYZ are things that will really interest them, because they're doing ABC out there, and this is what they're looking for, and I have the skill set, so why don't I bring that up in my introduction so that I have their attention? Developing the tools of the trade. I think tools of the trade are very simple. Looking at skill sets. I've been given to understand that all of you are engineering students. So I'm quite certain, depending on the job that you're applying for, first thing that comes to my mind is the, say, Python. If you're looking at something which is in the analytics domain, and you want to make sure that you're skilled in that if that's a part of your curriculum, right? So developing on those tools. If it's a job, say probably in the consulting sector, so apart from of course the technicalities of the job, you're also looking at enhancing your presentation skills, your communication skills, and there are plenty of courses out there. I'm certain some of your institutes will also run them. This whole series is one such example. So make sure you work on those and develop and enhance those tools in the skill set. Dressing for success, very important, because that is your visual appeal right there. Having that professional online image I spoke about earlier. Taking a writing class, maybe some people are not too good when it comes to writing resumes or possibly articles, or they have trouble in terms of really creating that personal brand when it comes to social media. No harm in possibly taking a writing class. Always ask for feedback, so your friend circle, families, anybody in your professional circle, nobody's ever going to say no to feedback. So seek guidance, seek feedback. Make sure that you're able to distinguish your brand. Keep it and keep. So once you create it, it's also important to keep it current. It's one thing that, hey, I did something 10 years back and I've continued with that. Times are changing. This is a very dynamic world. So you want to make sure that your personal brand is always updated, and then it syncs in with the need of the hour. Moving on to interviewing techniques. So before I really foray into interviews, let's just quickly look at what are the kind of interviews that you can really encounter out there. uh, One is of course a situational interview, where the interview is going to give you a possible situation and ask you how would you have reacted, or how would you have dealt with this situation. The other is a competency based interview. So a lot of firms have these number of competencies that they look at, whether it is say resilience, whether it is integrity, whether it is being a good team player, so or being collaborative and inclusive. And that's where they will ask you very specific questions around these competencies. Could be a situation, could be an example that they give you as to how would you go about it, could be even a case study that they could give you to gauge your competency, whether if they're looking at analytical skills. So those are your competency based interviews. The other is behavioral. Now a lot of people believe that when they ask you a behavioral question, so it is again very close and close to a situation based interview, where they will pose a question and ask you how would you deal with this situation, or were you ever in a situation where you had to deal with a difficult situation, or deal with someone who was possibly not very receptive to your ideas. How did you go about it? Give me an example, and what did you do? So that's where you will have to choose those very specific examples, tell them or lead them through what you did. And believe you me, if you create a situation imaginary response and you're giving it to them, the interview at the other end, like I said, is trained to know that you're not giving them genuine answers. So you do not want to do that. Think through all the competencies as part of your research work, and that a firm is looking at, and make sure that you prepare your responses in terms of what could possibly be behavioral examples that you could give them to demonstrate that you have those competencies and have displayed them during your college, or during your professional job. The next is the funneling technique. Now, this funneling technique is where interviewers start with a very wide uh, base set of questions, and say they'll probably start with, do you like traveling? Hypothetically, if you're, applying for possibly a traveling blogger job, and once you say yes, I do enjoy traveling, that's when they're going to start narrowing it down further and ask you more specific questions. Say, when was the last time you traveled? What was the place? What is something that really stood out for you? If you were to describe that place, say maybe in 3 words for me, what would those 3 words be? So as you see, the funnel is narrowing down, and they're getting very specific in their questions. The star technique. Now, again, here they will, look at giving you a situation, understanding how you dealt with it, what was your action that you took in that situation, and what was the overall response that you got in, from your action. So that is what they're trying to assess in the STAR technique. Structured is what you'll see is that people have a standard set of questions, and if there are, five of you from the same college who are getting evaluated, and the interview is following the structure techniques, all each of you will get those standard set of questions. And depending on the kind of responses you've given, they will look at, whether it was a situation based question or a competency based question or a behavioral question. They'll capture that and they'll do a comparison of each of you and figure out, who's probably the most capable candidate, or a candidate that will be a suitable fit for the role that they are offering on the campus. So that's a quick overview of interviewing techniques. Now, your dream job, and how do you really get it? How do you really crack that interview? Very important when it comes to preparing for an interview. This whole job scenario, and what are some of those things that you really need to do. Get your resume right. I'm quite certain that some of you may have a standard format that is dictated by your campus. Make sure that your resume not just talks about your academic qualifications and your extracurricular activities, but any projects that stand to showcase your capability should also be mentioned there. uh, it should be concise. The golden rule for resumes is, and a lot of people possibly don't even follow it, is to keep it as concise and crisp as possible. So, ideally a one-page resume, so that the interviewer is able to look at it and all key facts are listed there. And in that one page, they know that, okay, this is the candidate for me. The lengthier resume, people don't have the attention span. So if your resume is about 2, 3, 4 pages, you've written, praises about yourself, you've described in detail all your achievements, believe you me, no people have the patience to read it, and there's a high chance that they'll probably give it a pass. That, oh, that's a very lengthy resume. I'm not sure if I want to look at this at this point of time. So the key is having a concise, crisp, yet very, very appropriate resume. Prepare for the questions to be asked. Now, I'm quite certain, depending on the job description that you get for each role, you would get a broad idea of what is it that they're looking for, because they do talk about qualifications. They do talk about what is it that they're looking for in candidates. If not, feel free to, ask your placement cell or whoever the, HR person or the recruiter, or whoever that person is in touch with you, ask them that, what is it that you evaluate in candidates. And once you get to know that, prepare. You can anticipate that, okay, if they talk about competencies, then you've got to think in with the lens, or in the context of those competencies, that, okay, how did I really showcase integrity? Do I have an example? Can I describe the situation? Can I talk about what was my action, what was the reaction, response, etc.? Or if they talk about a time when possibly you displayed your analytical skills, so do you have an example of that? So it's very important to keep those responses ready. While these are just the behavioral side of it, make sure that you brush up on your technicals as well. So if you're, like I said, giving an interview for an analytics firm, then you want to make sure that you're thorough with your languages, you're thorough with your stats, you're thorough with your examples of how to approach a problem. That's important. uh, I think I'll never get tired of saying dressing for success, even in a virtual scenario, is extremely important. It's very important to look professional. It's one thing to be donning maybe your tracks and your t-shirts, but it's another thing to be wearing that crisp shirt with a tie for your interview, and looking very, very professional. Or and for the ladies, of course, right from your professional salwar suits to your professional business suits or saris, whichever works. Please make sure that you dress professionally for your interview. Rehearsing for the interview is very important in a virtual scenario, especially, and otherwise as well. You want to make sure that you're not coming across as someone who's nervous or timid, who doesn't know what to do. And I think the more you rehearse, you'll also realize your unconscious behavioral patterns. So, it's important either you rehearse in front of the mirror or with another friend, and, ask them to evaluate you on your body language, eye contact, how your posture, and at the same time, the content of what you're giving. So, rehearsal always helps. I'm quite sure that, when you prepared for those debates in college or school, rehearsals worked well. That's why we also say, you revise before your exam. That worked well too. Anticipating the obvious questions during the interview. So, while you're preparing for questions to be asked, anticipating those questions would go hand in hand. Working out a strategy to deal with stress. So it's very easy to possibly say that, hey, I'm going for an interview, but it does cause a lot of stress. I personally, I think I gave my first interview from campus almost about some 11, 12 years back, and I was equally nervous. It's important to figure out how you deal with it. All of you have your mechanisms of dealing with stress. Some very common techniques are taking a few deep breaths, closing your eyes, visualizing you're in a good and a peaceful place. Or some people, the others who react to whether twitch their hands or their fingers, or they tap their feet. Make sure you don't do any of that, because that is distracting. So figure out something which is less observable and something that really helps you. So I think typically taking a few deep breaths works. Even if you get nervous during an interview, say somebody's asked you a question and you're feeling nervous about it, I would suggest that you buy time. Ask them for those 30 seconds in a virtual setup, physical setup. This works. Tell them, can I take 30 seconds, or can I, just take a sip of water? And nobody's going to deny you that, and nobody's going to judge you for that. So just make sure that you don't lose your composure in an interview. Now, read the vacancy details in employers' literature. When we say vacancy details, what is the position you're getting into? So make sure you go through the job description. Make sure you do your research work in terms of, you know, uh, going through the firm's websites, their financial statements, understanding what the firm stands for, what are the kind of services the firm is offering. Has the firm been in the media of recently for anything? So you want to make sure that you do a thorough job of researching, because when you're out there, what really differentiates you from other candidates is how genuinely, what is the kind of effort you've made to understand the firm. And this effort is not limited to just researching on the website. It's also about connecting with people. So if you have alumni from your campus who are working with this organization, reach out to them, understand, what would work well, what would not work well, what does the firm stand for in terms of its culture, ethos, and all of that. So that thorough prep is extremely important. First impressions, I think apart from really dressing up and taking care of your body language, what's really important here is punctuality. So whether you're either going physically for an interview or you're appearing for an interview virtually, being on time is extremely important. For instance, today for me, it was not the best example. There was a technical glitch. But generally, as a best practice, I would log in at least 15, 20 minutes early, and, you know, make sure that everything's working, everything's prim and proper. So for you also, you want to make sure that you've done all this testing of your audio video equipment. You've, checked your background. You need to have a very professional background when you're sitting for an interview. There is no disturbance. There's no, the light is proper. Your screen is not too dark and all of that, and so that the other person at the other end, and best way to do it is, uh, do a trial run with one of your friends, so that you know how you look at the other end of the screen. Ask them to send you screenshots, and speak to them. So punctuality is extremely important. Making a good entrance. So when we say typically in a physical scenario, you'd of course make a good entrance, but in a virtual scenario, your good entrance is how you greet the person. And you know generally what they say, it's called a virtual handshake. So the moment you say hello, you probably bend a little forward, do a little nod, and then sort of settle back. So that's all. And when I say bend forward, please don't go all the way down. It's just about 10 meters. So bend a little, acknowledge the person, settle back. So that's your virtual handshake right there. uh, Make sure you're sitting properly, straight, erect, and at the same time you're not slouchy or sloppy. And smile, very important. That speaks volumes for your confidence. Now, interviews can really be tricky, and this is just something I found, given that we are all of you from the engineering background. um, just on a lighter note there, but looking at what do interviews really want to know about you. you know so their primary job is to make sure that they find the right fit for the role they're looking for. And generally now the trends shape towards finding people who are independent thinkers, people who can think on their feet, people who can adapt and are at the same time disruptive in their thinking. They are very, very innovative. They can come up with new ideas, they can look at a situation from a different lens. Some of those things are extremely important. And last but not the least, how are you as a person to work with, right? And how do they really gauge that? So they have enough situational interviews to situational questions to assess that, behavioral questions to assess that. So it's very important that you're a person that would gel in their culture. If it's a team job, then you're a person who can get along with others. So you're inclusive, you're collaborative. If it's an independent individual performer role, then you're someone who can deal with the working and or who's highly accountable for what they do, and can work with minimal supervision. So some of those things are really important, and this is exactly what interviewers are looking for. Now, a quick question here, and let's see some of the responses that come in. So, when we look at preparing for an interview, uh, it's very important that you demonstrate, and that is where your elevator pitch becomes important, your resume becomes important, where you talk about how good as a person you are in terms of being a good fit for this role. How do you meet the qualification criteria? Do you meet the experience criteria, if any? And your job should be to constantly really steer the conversation towards your strengths, highlighting what you're good at. That does not mean that you go ahead and completely divert from the topic or what they've asked you simply because you want to talk about your strengths. So here is someone who's asking me about uh, you know okay, so how do you deal with stress? And I start by responding, oh, I'm fantastic at dealing with stress. I like to dance. That doesn't help the situation, right? So I'm going to tell them that I have dealt with many stressful situations in the past, and what works well for me is to probably take a few minutes to myself, take a few deep breaths, list down what are the problem areas, what are possibly solutions that I can look at, or what are the things that I can do, and if required, discuss it with my manager, right? So you've got to build your responses in the context of the interview and make sure that you are able to highlight your strengths. It's important to be as specific as possible. So I can give vague responses where in response to the question about how do you deal with stress, and say, oh, I'm great at dealing with stress, and I leave it at that. That doesn't tell the interviewer anything until I give the example that I like to take a minute, list down what are the problems I'm facing, etc. That's a specific example. So you need to be very specific. Please steer clear of any vague responses. Um, when it comes to describing something about yourself or a specific situation, be as precise as possible so that you sound as genuine as possible. Okay, quick question. Now, this is a sample question that can come in, like, tell me about a favorite project that you worked on. Now, when you look at the typical responses here, this is an exact response. You know, somebody who's talking about their summer placements, they're talking about what was the project about, what is it that they learned from the project, and how did their skills come handy for the project, right? And why do they think that based on this experience they are a good fit for this role? So that's a classic way of really describing. You're precise, you're focusing on your strengths, you're talking about what you learned, what you contributed, and why will you be a good fit for this role. Some people may choose to again generically answer this question by saying, you know oh, I did this summer project, and it was simply about integrating this mobile app. It was fun working. And that's not an answer that I'm looking for as an interviewer. I'd rather go with someone who'd give me all these details that you see on the screen here. And I'll say, okay, this person genuinely worked on that project, and, has the knowledge, has the content, and may work for my team. So why don't I, give this a shot, consider this person? Very important how you draft your responses. And just an example of, some of the things that I've reiterated earlier. Quickly moving on to how do you really prepare and demonstrate this in an interview, that you're adaptive, you're innovative, because that's a common question that comes. Now, these are the type of questions that people can ask you, that can you learn, can you adapt, can you innovate? So when you are wanting to address this question, and for that reason, anything that's asking you about a skill set that you have, it's very important to think about those specific examples. Think about how you will build the narrative and the story around it. And you've already seen that in the summer internship example. And give talk about very specific actions that you took, and what was the outcome. Was it successful, was it not successful, but at least you tried, right? So, and what did you learn from that failure? Or either ways, what did you learn from overcoming that failure? So it's very important to think about those examples, and that preparation before the interview becomes extremely important. It's one thing to cram up everything in that in your books and whatever is part of your curriculum, but it's another thing to deal with such indirect questions about you as a person, which focus on your skills. Now, another sample question that can come up is tell me about a time when something you worked on did not go as per your plan. Now, what could be an ideal response to it? So, here's a classic example. Here's a person who talked about a project, what that project was all about, and what was their approach, and what they realized was going wrong. Then, how did they go about rectifying the situation, and what was the final outcome? It is crisp, it is concise, yet it is giving all the details about how they dealt with the situation, and if you look at so many details, I'm quite certain it's very difficult to cook up some of this at the last minute, because, like I said, the moment you try and fudge your way through, people will use the funneling technique, ask you very specific questions, and in an instance, they will catch you if you're just trying to fib your way through the interview. So make sure you do not do that, and you quote genuine examples and genuine instances. Now, another question that you probably might also experience is, what are you like to work with? So here again, you want to think through your strengths, especially in the context of your role. So if it's a team lead role, or say it's a consulting role. So you want to think about what could be possible strengths there: communication, articulation, collaboration with other people, right? Good learning skills, etc. The ability to take feedback and work back on it, and again, build your narrative, build your story, uh, you know build a very concise example with specific instances around this. Now, a quick question, and this is a poll. Now here's a question for you. How do your project mates describe you? May I request you to actually look at these three options that are listed here and tell me which is the option you think is going to be more appropriate. You can just list option A, B, C in the chat window. So let's see what are some of the responses that are coming in. Sorry, move that. Okay, so I see Adesh, B is his response. There's Vishal, he's saying C. Yeah, okay. So what I'm sensing is that, most people are oscillating between B and C. Clearly, I think people don't want A as a response, and you guys are right in terms of what you've chosen. So between B and C, you can go with any one of them. And ideally, B would be the best response. And you can actually describe that situation if you were to give a very specific example. Moving on to the next slide here, which is before an interview. So we've talked about how you're preparing for an interview, all that you need to do, the type of questions. Now, what are some of those important prep activities before an interview? And we've actually spoken about them. So let's hear from you in the chat window now. What all will you do before an interview? What do you think is important? Oh, great. So Vedant says arrive on time. Yes, most certainly. Being punctual. So whether virtual or physical. What else? Adish says being calm. Most certainly. Rohan saying research about the company. Absolutely. Piyush is saying learning about the recruiting company. Totally. Aman says being confident. And there's someone who also, Amit said don't lie. Sandeep saying testing before the interview. And there's Abrar, he's saying preparing your good intro. Absolutely, Abrar. And Rishabh saying focus on your strength during the interview. So all of you are bang on, and that is true. So right from your pre-prep in terms of your physical environment, the whole setup of the interview, to actually your research work, understanding the role, the culture, looking at the job description, reading up, to rehearsing as well for your interview, just to understand how you come across in a virtual scenario. Those are very important. Fantastic. Let's move on Now, after the interview, what are some of the things that we can really do after an interview? It just gets interesting from here. So, the interview really isn't over when you finish meeting the evaluator in a physical setting or in a virtual setting. What are some of the things that you can really do? And this is again linked to your personal brand, very important. Connect with the interviewer. So, once your interview is wrapping up, make sure if you have any queries, any clarifications that you want, you're asking those questions. It's a good time to, get those clarified. It's important to understand some of the timelines that, when can I expect to hear from you, or when do you think is a good time for me to follow up? And ask them as to how can you follow up. Do they prefer a call, do they prefer a mail, or do they prefer you to connect on LinkedIn? And then you can also consider sending a personal LinkedIn invite. Do not send invites which do not have a reason. That's one of the basic faux pas that people make. You connecting or networking with someone, please do send them a personalized note. It always reflects on you as a person. So whoever, no matter you're reaching out to, always send a note that, hi, so and so, I think it'll be great to have you in my network because of so and so, or I think it'll be a good learning experience for me, or met you there and would love to be a part of your network. So come up with your punchlines and put in that personal request on LinkedIn. The other is following up. So, you've already understood how you're going to follow up when you were finishing that interview by asking them what mode they prefer and how soon, and write that mail, and possibly even send them a thank you mail that, while, you've got, either irrespective of whether, you made it or you did not make it, talk about your experience. If you genuinely had a good experience in the interview, thank them for it and tell them, these were some of my key takeaways, and I look forward to staying connected with you and possibly future opportunities as and when they come up. Or even, this could be a chance to maybe also ask for any feedback if you've not already sought that feedback immediately after the interview, right? And important is reflect how your interview went. So you should always look at working on enhancing your interviews, as to what worked well, what did not work well, analyze what you did, how you did it, and how you felt about the whole experience and the company. Very important. Go with your gut feeling. Unless you were not convinced, to not join an organization. Virtual interviews, I think this is something we've all spoken about. Just a quick recap. You all are pros at this by now in terms of what we need to be careful of with our gadgets. I have also seen that some people, even in a virtual interview setup, do not turn off their phones. So it's very important. Either you put it on mute, but it's very awkward to hear a ringtone go in the midst of an interview, and then people scramble to put it on silent. So please make sure that that is taken care of at least. That's true for your interviews that you do in person as well. And we've talked about the virtual handshake that you see here. So just that 10-meter bend, acknowledging the person, and sort of saying hello in a virtual environment. Important to think through an answer. So, like I said, irrespective of whether you're nervous or you really need time to think through a question that has come your way, because some people also choose to give puzzles or guesstimates, right, to you during interviews. And that's when you want to take time off, and you can actually ask people that, it's okay. Can I just take 30 seconds to a minute to think through this and respond? So feel free to do that. If you even need a pen and a paper and you're not already carrying it, so just tell them that, is it okay if I borrow a pen and a paper? I need to, just sort of think through this, and I'd like to use a pen paper for it. And be genuine. Nothing's more important than being you, because you have to realize that when you get into a working environment, you spend a lot of time doing what you are supposed to do. So unless you truly enjoy doing that, and you're a right fit, you're not going to be happy. And you, believe you me, you don't want to be in a situation where you're unhappy and you're not really enjoying what you do, because that's a considerable amount of time of your day and on your life that you're investing in work. So you genuinely want to do something that that you are a good fit for, and you enjoy doing. Okay, so those were some of the key takeaways from this session in terms of what interviews really want to hear, your preparation for the interview, and what really happens during the first 90 seconds. People frame first impressions. Actually, the first line of thought starts coming in within the first 7 to 9 seconds. And then within the next 90 seconds, people have a whole completely built perception of you, your persona, as to who you are, what type of an individual you could be, and that shapes their interactions with you. Important technique here is, what really works, and we do this in coaching as well at times with some of our clients. It's called mirroring. So, it's very simple. You look at the interviewer at the other end, and you try and mirror some of their actions. So maybe if their head's slightly tilted, do not tilt your head too much, but just a little bit to sort of match them on the other side, virtually as well as in a physical setup. If probably they in a physical setup, if you were sitting in front of someone and you realize that they'd sort of crossed their hands and were sitting like this, maybe at some point of time, not immediately, and don't make it very obvious, you could try doing that. So that just helps other people correlate with you better, because they're seeing some of their own unconscious actions there, and they're able to relate to you better. That works well in coaching for clients who are not able to open up and talk too much. So if you do mirroring, they are able to share more, they're able to talk more. So you could consider that. But like I said, that comes with a lot of practice. Please make sure that you don't look like you're just constantly aping someone, because that can be intimidating and annoying. So very, very discreetly, you could consider mirroring, but do practice, because it can be risky if you're not practicing it and you're not too great at it. Now, top interview blunders that people make, and I think this is just a reverse of what we've discussed. If you're not prepared, you don't talk enough in terms of giving an example, you're giving very fuzzy facts, you're not very specific, you're not appropriately dressed, your posture is all wrong, and you're giving incorrect answers, or you're bad mouthing your past employers. That doesn't set a right message about you, and there's too much communication. So while this is in the context of cell phones, but even in a virtual scenario, if you're talking and there's something that there's a constant ping happening on your Teams, on your Zoom, etc., whatever other channels you're using, whether it's Slack, some of those, you want to make sure that there are no such disturbances. And while you're not talking enough in terms of giving examples, you don't want to be that person who's talking too much as well. And just going on and on when you should be giving crisp, concise answers. And do not forget to follow up. Some people do forget to follow up, so it's very important to keep some of these things in mind. With that, I will now open the floor for question and answers. Happy to specifically address your queries, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and happy to see your queries. I already see something is in the chat window. And this question is, okay, this says that, ma'am, can we give a general answer for describe yourself? I'm not too sure what your general answer here would be, but if you're very vague in describing yourself, and I think we did talk about this in terms of, your elevator pitch, because when you talk about yourself, that is your elevator pitch. So there can never be a generic answer there. You have to talk about how well you fit in with the context of this role. So you're highlighting your strengths, you're maybe giving an example. And if some of you are familiar with Shark Tank, you would see that some of those people actually make an elevator pitch, right? And this introduction of yours keeps getting customized in the context of the employer or the interview that you're giving. So it's very important to be very precise. It's important to be specific instead of being generic, because if you're generic, it doesn't mean anything to people at times, because they cannot correlate to it. So if you're meeting, say, someone from the consulting environment, you want to talk about how you've interacted with people, how good you are when it comes to collaboration, if you're good at articulation, presentation, or if you've been in a consulting environment before, you want to talk about how you were able to convince the person on the other side of the table. So those are some of the things that you need to build in your pitch. Now this would be very different if you're going in for an individual contributor role. You want to really talk about accountability there, minimal supervision, and all of that. So the long answer to your question is that do not be generic. Be specific when it comes to your introduction. Talk about your strengths, examples in the context of the role that you're, or the firm that you're appearing for. Sarita has a question here that can I know when we have to start preparing a resume? I mean, it's right before a few days of the interview, or as a student, should we start preparing our resume from now onwards? So Sarita, you've actually answered your question. It's the second, the latter, which is start preparing your resume. So if you are, say, pre-final year students, a resume is not something that gets created overnight. And if you are doing it overnight, then let me tell you, as an interviewer, I will probably figure out that it's a shoddy resume. Uh, the moment one reads a resume, one is able to differentiate between a resume where you've invested time and where you haven't invested time. So my sincere request to all of you would be that start working on your resumes. Resumes are something that gets shaped up with time. You will realize this when you start with your first draft, and maybe say after the next 3 4 months, even if you don't immediately need your resumes, your resume would look significantly different from your first draft. So, and a resume requires a good amount of research work, because you want to make sure that it's just that one page you're really making the impact you want to when it comes to your employer. Now, they can be customized resumes for again different firms, but I do know that in a campus setup, there are formats that get restricted, and there are chances that you all have to stick to the same format. But within that format, I'm quite certain then you really have to think through and pay attention to what you want to really list about yourself. So please do not wait till the last minute. Start working on your resumes in advance. There's a question here which says that what I meant is, do we have to mention our name? Oh, okay. So if this is in the context of your interview, yes, absolutely. It is important to mention your name. While your name may already be on your resume, unless the person has addressed you already and greeted you with your name, uh, you know, uh, that's when you can skip it. Otherwise, yes, you do start with your name. Okay, so I noticed there's some questions that have come up in the chat window. Let me take those up here. Okay, so Abrar here has a question wherein we can ask questions like, what are the qualities of your most successful employees? Absolutely, Abrar, you could actually ask them that, what makes an employee successful for them, or who is a successful employee in their organization, right? Or who is a good performer as per the organization standards. The other question that Varmadeen has is, what can be possible answer for what are your weaknesses? Good question, Varmadeen, and that can be a catch 22 for many. So I would suggest that people come up generally with responses where they try and portray a strength. In and For example, I'll give you the standard thing that I've always heard over the years from many students is that I'm a perfectionist, as a result of which I end up investing a lot of time in what I'm doing, and I'm not able to meet my deadlines. So how you can probably and what you can do here is that there is no wrong or right answer here, but what you really want to or be seen as a genuine person. So if you have a weakness in terms of say I'm not too great when it comes to articulating my ideas, but I am working on it, and I have taken this course, when it comes to speaking to people, or when it comes to I'm doing more conversations with my friends, and I'm talking more about my feelings, or I'm talking more about the work I do, or I'm taking inputs from them, or rehearsing my interviews, some examples. Or say if I'm not very good at writing reports, but I am working, I have taken this online course maybe from LinkedIn Learning, and you know I have done fairly well in it, and I'm confident that I'll be able to deal with this. So what's important is, when you're highlighting a weakness, don't highlight the weakness alone. You have to talk about what are the steps you are taking to deal with that weakness, and what progress have you made. So as long as you have these three elements in your answer, you can talk about any weakness which is reasonable, of course, and put it out there. I hope that gives you some clarity as to how you can address that question, Varmadeen. Venkatesh has a query here wherein, what if we are asked something and we don't have a clear idea of it in an interview? And that actually happens, Venkatesh. I mean, it's happened with me also, and not only in an interview, but in a lot of meetings. And I have seen some very senior people also do that. If they don't know something, there is no harm in at times admitting that I'm sorry, this is not something I'm aware of, or this is not related to my domain. But I would love to go back and explore this. But happy to hear from you if you can give me some knowledge about this topic. So you can admit that it is better than fibbing your way through, right? Because if you don't know, you might end up giving an incorrect response, which might actually backfire. Honesty is always appreciated by everyone. So if you don't know something, you can always tell them that I'm sorry, this is not something that I'm aware of, and that'll do less damage as compared to just giving an incorrect response or fibbing your way through, because then people will say that, here's someone who does not acknowledge that they may not know something. We don't expect people to be perfectionists. We don't expect everyone to know everything. So it's okay to acknowledge at times that you don't know something, and you'll at least gain the respect of that employer. Okay, so Sandeep has a question. Can you share the presentation slides? Sure, I'll try and send some content over, which will from this presentation. Happy to help out with that. I can certainly share it at a later stage. I'll share it with Jennifer, and it can be passed on to all of you. Anything else? Any other questions?
Yogja, we have a few more questions in the chat box, but I think we are running over time. So I think you can take two or three questions.
Sure, sure. So I'm sorry, but I can't see the updated questions. But someone can just quickly read them out for me. I'll just answer
There's a
them.
question about star technique. Someone wants to know what is star technique actually is.
Sure. So when I look at the STAR technique, it's really about a situation. They'll give you a situation. They'll ask you about a situation that you were in. They will ask you about, what you were dealing with in that specific situation. And they will also ask you about, what was the action you took to deal with that situation, and what was really the outcome. So situation is S right there in STAR technique. The T part there is task, and the A part is action and the result. So very similar to a behavioral or a situational technique. They will simply ask you that, what is it that you were trying to achieve in that situation? What was the task at hand, or what was your objective? And, what did you do? What were some of the actions that you took? And at the same time, what was really the outcome or the end objective or the result of it, right? So whether it was, say, did you get the desired reaction that you wanted? Did you get the desired increase? Say maybe you were looking at some increase in your finances of the project. So did you get that? So that is exactly what the STAR technique is. It is actually part of a behavioral interview itself, where they start with a very specific situation. And I think I gave this example of the travel blogging interview. So wherein, they tell you that, what you really enjoy. Do you like traveling? You start with yes. Then they'll, come down to a very specific thing. So tell me about a time when you had to travel at short notice to a smaller place, which was not too great, right? So, how did you react to it? And you got into trouble there. So, what all did you do in that situation, and what was really the outcome, right? So that's just a quick example of the STAR technique, and what that interview is. I hope that addresses your query.
So we can take another question, which asks like, can you please suggest some websites or videos to prepare for interviews or any behavioral questions?
Sure. So what I'll do is, the content that I share with Jennifer, I'll probably put in some links also of, some of these sites that you can use to prepare for your interviews. But like I said, I think what's really important is for you to think through and list down on a piece of paper what are your strengths, what do you stand for, what is it that you're looking for. So at least when you have those three things addressed, then whenever you are looking at an employment opportunity, you would know better how to relate to it and how you could, build your resume or structure your pitch. So I can certainly share at least the videos, etc., with you. There's plenty of content out there.
Thanks, Yogja. So we'll take the last question for the evening, where we have two or three students coming up with questions on group discussion. They just want you to elaborate on that. A few advices or tips on group discussions, please.
Sure. So a group discussion, you have to understand, is a way to really gauge a couple of things. One is your communication skills. The other is your articulation ability. The third is, how are you really gelling in with others in that group? So the best way to really, so you have to be careful. In a group discussion, you don't want to be the person who's talking the most. At the same time, you don't want to be the person who's not talking at all. Third, you don't want to be the person who's constantly interrupting others. You've got to be assertive, you've got to be articulate, and you also don't want to be the person who's repeating the answers or whatever others are saying. So, just repackaging it and putting it there. Now, in a group discussion, what will really impress employers are, okay, someone takes the lead. but they make a genuine point, or you set the tone for how the group discussion will proceed with others, and you give everybody an equal chance, so you become the moderator of the discussion. The other thing that would really stand out in a participant in a group discussion is how much of research or knowledge do they have about the topic. So are you quoting any facts, you're quoting any figures, so that it showcases that you genuinely know about this topic, and you're genuinely making sense. The other is they could be, how attentive are you? So towards the end I can just randomly pick up a person and ask them to summarize. So unless you're paying attention to what others are saying, you'll not be able to summarize. So please make sure that you're attentive, you are quoting facts and figures if it's a very specific topic, which where you can quote facts and figures. Be you're giving everybody an equal opportunity, but at the same time you're not missing out on opportunities to speak to. Now, how do you really prepare for interviews? Now, the general rule for, sorry, not interviews but group discussions, the general rule for group discussions is people try and steer clear of very politically sensitive topics. So they will ask you about current affairs in the context of what's happening. So while you're preparing for interviews, it's important you also brush up on your current affairs. They can even ask you on current affairs in the interview. So GDs can be around that. Or they can give you a very, very random topic, which is abstract, and they want to really understand, how innovative can you be in your thought process. So even if it's a random or a abstract topic, see how you can, relate it to the current role or scheme of things, or what's happening around in the current environment, and how can you make it relevant when you are really giving examples or correlating it to a situation. So there are a whole host of resources around GDs as well, and I'll be happy to share some content around GDs when I share the material with Jennifer. So I'll build that in as well.
Yes. So thank you, Yogja. I think
Jennifer, I just have one request. Before we wrap up, could I just, bring up my screen
okay.
and just request everybody to give me some feedback. So just give me a second, please.
But I don't think students will be able to do that, right?
No, they will be able to actually. So this is what you see here. They just need to go to this site called www.menti.com. The instructions are on the screen,
Okay.
and just punch in this code, and happy to see what you're feeling about this session. Was it a complete hogwash, or was I the one who was talking too much like an interview and just didn't make sense? Happy to genuinely get the feedback, so that I can also, just like this, I also conduct sessions for other students, and happy to hear if this makes any sense at all, and if I need to tweak it.
Sure, I'm sure the students have made a note of the ID and the code. So I think now we've come towards the end of the session. Yes, so thank you, Yogja, for the wonderful session on interview tips and virtual interviews. I'm sure the tips were very useful for the students. This is a really interesting session. So you'll get the feedback in your site soon. And I would also like to thank Cheryl and her team for coordinating all the sessions, as this is the last session from KPMG. This has been very helpful for our students. We are really grateful. On behalf of FFE, I would like to thank Cheryl and her team and all the speakers who participated, who put in their time and effort for these sessions. Thank you very much, all of you. And thank you, students, for being part of the session, for being very interactive in all the sessions. I'm sure you learned a lot from these. Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Have a nice
Thank you, everyone, and wish you all the very best. Bye bye.
Thanks, Yogya.